Hi everyone, today we're going to watch a video where I'm going to ask some people about two different questions. The first one is why they already know about current issues in language acquisition and learning, and the second one where they know about what is communicative competence. Go ahead.
One, as a teacher, I think that the most difficult part on the language acquisition process are like two things. Number one, it's the fear that a lot of students have to the second language to try themselves, to test themselves. Actually, sometimes it's not that they don't know, it's more like they are afraid to somebody laughing about him or things like that. And the number two, it's the context. Sometimes as teachers we make mistakes that students don't seem like the use of those words from the vocabulary in their real context. For example, when you want to teach them about food and you talk about the typical food that they usually eat, not a lot of students eat for lunch burgers and fries or hot dogs or pizza. They eat things like sancocho, that is a soup, or beans. That's more accurate for them. Two, for me, the communicative competence is how easy it is for you to communicate with somebody else and how easy it is for you to make yourself understandable for other people. That's how we evaluate our communicative competence with others.
Okay, hi, my name is Isabella, and well, for me, the communicative competence is the way that you can use of language knowledge in a specific context through different skills because it's like exchanging information that you have with the other persons. But I think that the one of the big problem, yes, the big problem in the language acquisition is the way that the many people show the language to the others. For example, sometimes in many places when the people teach English, they use grammar rules. And the grammar, yes, obviously is so important, of course. But for me, in this case, the communication is the protagonist because you can see the other's points of view. And that's the point in the communicative competence, and that's the point in language acquisition is the communication with the others. I guess.
Okay, the current issues are related with first, the context of the learner because sometimes the conditions are not taken into account. Second, the possibility to practice or receive input from the environment and the language. And finally, in some cases, the methodologies are not adapted for the needs of the learners. The communicative competence is related with certain abilities that needs to be developed to acquire a target language. In this case, is related with the speaking.
Okay, so current issues about learning, language acquisition and learning. I think the most important is motivation. If a student is demotivated and don't want to learn, so they will never learn. And what is communicative competence? Communicative competence is the ability of a person that can use the language, their structure to give a message, a clear message, and that the other people can understand clearly.
Hey, my name is Mateo Jaramillo, and today I'm going to answer two questions regarding communicative competence and the learning and acquisition of languages. First of all, what I understand for communicative competence is a set of understandings and skills that a person needs to appropriately communicate with someone else in a certain language. So, as you can see, it is a broad range of elements that are included in this conception of communicative competence: contextual elements, linguistic elements, social elements. So it is kind of complex in terms of all of the connections that we have to carry on in order to communicate with someone else, to understand and to make ourselves be understood. All right, and now talking about the current issues of learning and acquiring a language, for me is kind of difficult to think of those issues that are specifically affecting the learning of languages nowadays and not in the past. But the first thing that comes to my mind is textbooks. I think that nowadays we have a cultural hegemony in textbooks. Through textbooks, some like a particular set of values, philosophies, thoughts, and political, cultural, and social positions are being reproduced for the sake of a particular group or a particular elite or culture. And I think that that's kind of dangerous, like to have a singular point of view of the world, because the textbooks are like a bridge to understand the world. And I think that that can be something that doesn't necessarily make more difficult learning a language, but that makes learning a language something that can have very dangerous implications. So yeah, that's like the particular thing that comes to my mind when I think about that.
Hello, I am Ana Maria Villa. Regarding the first question, what are the current issues in language learning and acquisition? I think mainly the issue in our country, contextualizing it to our country, it would be the lack of clarity and the lack of, interest within the law to understand the current issues in language learning and acquisition. That is because we have so many new trends that come with second language learning and acquisition, and we're not applying them to the classroom, mainly because our laws require a different set of abilities than the current trends require. Okay, when it comes to communicative competence, I understand it as the production value a student has. This in a non-controlled environment, in a spontaneous environment. So when a student has the set of abilities to develop correctly, this comes to discourse, to linguistics, to pragmatics, to social abilities. When a student has this skill set and correctly requires that he has or she has correct communicative competence, this is for me the communicative competence. I don't know.
So, for me, the current issues in language acquisition learning, it's basically that we think that everything is from repetition and memorizing. So, I think that's the very, very important aspect that most of the learners, we felt into, because we think that learning another language is like just a combination of words that we must acquire in our brain, but we don't learn like deep inside. We just focus on general aspects that most of the time we forget because we don't put the important, or we don't give that importance that it deserves. So for me, communicative competence, it is not just the ability that we acquire to communicate. Communicative competence, it like require to focus on those little aspects that compose all of the language, like syntax, morphemes, phonology, those little aspects that when we combine it, we create what is language. So communicative competence focuses on every single aspect, that with the combination of all of them, we create what we can say like the ability to communicate.
Some of the current issues SLA have are the use of decontextualized methodologies and the use of imported material for the teaching of English as a second language or English as a foreign language in Colombia. These issues can impair the acquisition and learning of the language. And based on what I have learned through the career, communicative competence refers to the ability to use a language and knowledge about that language, where knowledge can allude to rules or views or the linguistic competence.
Thank you everyone for watching this video. As a part of the conclusion, we already said all these comments are some opinions that my classmate and teacher has about what communicative competence is, and some of the current issues that learning and acquisition process has. So what I'm going to say right now is like the some factors can to make a little bit more complicated this kind of processes. Some of my classmates already say that the way that the courses are organized, maybe the materials, maybe the qualification of the teacher when they are teaching some classes, so they can't be a big part of the some difficulties that it could be appearing this path. And finally, of part of the communication competence, we can say that this is like the ability that we have to communicate something, in this case a message, with other people. So it's a way that we can organize some ideas and how we can express these ideas to the other people, of course. One more time, thank you so much for to watch this video, sorry, and I'll see you later.